Hi, today I wanted to talk to you about consequences and the use of rationales. Now, we call them rationales, but what they really are just motivations. So, what are the motivating things that you can use for consequences that you implement with your child? We talk a lot about the importance of consequences, and that consequences are really meant to teach your child. They're not meant to punish your child. Now, are schools of thought that punishing your child is something that they need because they just need to be punished when they misbehave. The reality is punishments don't work. They really don't. And if you don't believe me, just look at overall the corrections system. That is a punitive approach to criminals. Right? Let's lock them up and let's just isolate them. And so if anyone has been to prison, you know that it's not one of those rehabilitative places where you're working on improving them and changing them. Punishment is meant to cause physical or emotional harm in order to bring about change. So causing some type of trauma. That sounds awful, but punishment really is to cause some type of trauma to the child in order for the child to learn from it and change. Yes, spanking is an example of one of those. Yelling is an example of one of those. All those cause some type of emotional scarring or harm to the child. And here at Smarter Parenting, and actually in mental health, that is not an effective way of bringing about change or long-lasting change. Now for children, because they're subject to their parents, they will make changes. But the changes will be usually short term, and it actually creates resentment between the parents and the children. So punishments do work, but they work only for a short amount of time, and the lasting impact of your damaged relationship with your child is the consequence of moving that route. So punishing your child is something that we highly discourage, largely because as your child grows and you grow, you want to maintain a relationship that is nurturing and caring and supportive of each other. So we never go that route. We focus on consequences or things that naturally occur or that you can implement in your home as a consequence in order to teach a new behavior. Usually focused on building the relationship but letting them understand this action has a consequence. So that's the difference between punishment and consequences in the realm of smarter parenting. Our focus is to help parents implement consequences that teach the child but do not damage the relationship. That is the entire goal. So let me get back to rationales and why rationales are so essential to making sure that consequences work. Rationales or motivation systems help link in what is important to the child to the behaviors that they need to do. So if you can use an effective rationale or motivation to help them understand this action leads to this, your child is more likely to make changes and adjust their behavior so they can get what they want, and you can also help teach them a better way. Let me give you an example of this, because I think examples are actually the most helpful. If a parent is working with a younger child and they are giving them consequences like, well, you're going to be grounded for a week or you're going to be grounded for a month. For a young child, a week and a month really don't mean very much. To the parent it does because they measure time that way. For a young child, it's, wake up, eat, play, poop, eat, go back to sleep. Okay, that's kind of the schedule, right? And so finding a rationale that fits, that's more appropriate for that child, will be far more effective than doing blanket statements like I'm going to ground you for a week. Now, for an older child, that may work, but for a younger child, you want to focus on a rationale or a motivation that works. So based on what they do with their free time, how they're interacting with friends, what their interests are, you can use those as rationales to help shape their behavior and use those as consequences. Okay? So for a younger child, focus on what they're doing and use a rationale that's meaning or a motivation that's meaningful for them. For a teenager, it's the same thing. You don't want to be giving consequences that are too huge or too crazy or that are unmotivating. I hear this a lot from a lot of parents. It's like, I've done this as a consequence because they won't clean their room and they won't Or I've given him this consequence because he keeps getting in trouble at school, and they call the police and brought him home. And I'm like, okay, so what have you done? And they've been like, well, I've grounded him, and I've taken away his video games, and then I start delving deeper and asking them questions like, well, how much do they play their video games? And they're like, well, he likes it a lot. I bought it for him for Christmas. He said he wanted it. And then I'll ask, so how much time does he spend? And they'll say, well, maybe once a week. Okay, that's not an appropriate motivator for him, because once a week shows he's interested, but maybe not that interested. So finding what is interesting or what is motivating for the child will be essential for you as a parent. So again, these rationales, these motivators are sometimes hard to discover in your children, but you can do so by observing what they do in their free time, how they interact with people, what their interests are, what they talk about. Those are the things that you would use as motivators or rationales to help shape their behavior. And again, we don't want to move down the route of using punitive or punishment. We actually are looking to correct the behavior without injuring the relationship with your child. So that's the whole premise behind focusing on using rationales or motivations that are meaningful for the child. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below, and don't forget to subscribe, and please visit our Smarter Parenting website. You can get more parenting help there, parenting skills that are available for free. So feel free to contact us and let us know.